Hello YouTube, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've decided to make a video all about the new Tier 9 Italian light cruiser premium, that is, the Messina. Mama fucking mia, this ship is a blast, ladies and gentlemen. I have had so much fun playing this ship in the last 24 hours, and I had to pencil this in and make a review because I have to illustrate about how much fun and how good this ship is, and how I have to praise Wargaming on actually making a very fun premium ship that, in my opinion, is actually pretty damn well balanced. It has good trade-offs, it has good pros, it has good good cons in regards of balancing department. All in all, this is a phenomenal premium ship, and I would love to share my thoughts on this ship and why I think if you are lucky enough to get this ship, why you just won the lottery, okay? Now, at the end of the day, this is still just a cruiser, and when we play World of Battleships and World of Aircraft Carriers, we have to understand that it is going to get rain checked in from time to time. Overmatch is a massive problem. Plane spotting is a massive problem. You're just going to have to compensate with that, which you do have some tools to compensate and alleviate those issues. And I'll get into that here in just a little bit. But this to basically sum up what the Messina is. I'm sure I'm butchering the name. I don't care. You know what ship I'm talking about. But basically, to sum up what this ship is we have taken the Brindisi hull, we have stripped off the 203mm guns, and we have now replaced them with dual-purpose 152mm guns that only shoot semi-armor piercing shells. There is no armor piercing. There is no HE. All you have is semi-armor piercing on this ship. That, coupled with the the Gorizia hydroacoustic search, which is the 6-kilometer hydroacoustic search that found on high-tier German ships. You actually have that here on your Italian cruiser as well. That, coupled with a fuel exhaust smoke, really creates an interesting sort of platform or ship here in game. I will be honest with you, having only access to semi-armor piercing shells is a bit of a positive in regards of, hey, you're going to get consistent chunk damage from each salvo. You don't have to think about which shell type do I have to use in certain situations. It kind of dumbs it down for you in that regard. But I do find myself, as an experienced cruiser player, an experienced player in this game, I do find myself lacking or wishing and yearning for armor piercing or HE on the ship. More often than not, armor piercing. I think I can work with not having high explosive if I have SAP, but not having armor piercing really limits my capabilities in regards of punishing ships who happen to show a lot of broadside to me. Yes, I have that chunk damage. I can just chunk them every 7.9 seconds with my current build, but I can't score those Citadel ribbons, which is going to translate to more damage overall, and more damage that the enemy can't heal back, as usually, as a standard rule of thumb, ships can only heal back 10% of Citadel damage. So that is a huge kind of balancing feature to this ship if you look at it from an experienced commander's standpoint. If you are new to cruisers or new to Italian ships, new to SAP ships, whatever, and it kind of seems to be overwhelming for you, having access to semi-armor piercing is just a solid foundation, as really all you have to know is how much penetration your SAP has and where to aim at specific targets in order to get that certain kind of pen damage. Other than that, though, that is basically what this ship is. Now, I will be comparing this ship heavily to the Gonzaga. That is the other Tier 9 premium Italian light cruiser we have here at Tier 9. The only difference with the Gonzaga is I believe that ship does indeed have, and I just want to double check my my numbers here, that ship doesn't have 152s. It actually has 135mm guns. Those are the same guns you find on, let's say, the Italian DDs, like the Regero at Tier 10. Except those, I believe, are quad-mounted, not a triple-barreled. Yes, that is correct. And we're going to be comparing it heavily to that ship, because that is the alternate or other Tier 9 cruiser you can get here at tier 9. Okay, which actually has been released in the game. I believe you can buy it outright in the premium store, and it's now in the rotation, so you really don't have to wait for, like, you know, FOMO, right? Which sadly, this ship is part of the FOMO event. Now, I did obtain some crates for the Lunar New Year. I believe I spent like 20 per each, which I had a shit ton of doubloons, and I really didn't want to spend on anything else, so I said, fuck it, I'll roll the die, and I'll see what I can get. I'll be absolutely honest with you guys, the second iteration, so 20 crates I got after the initial 20, dog shit, absolute dog shit, and that's why gambling really sucks in this game. But the first 20, I actually managed to pick up 4 of those Nyan containers, which you have to buy the containers to roll a container to then potentially roll a ship that you want. And I actually was lucky enough to get the ship that I really wanted. It was between the Ying Ming and the Messina, and I actually got, you know, the cruiser player here, shockingly enough, I actually ended up picking up the Messina with the luck of the draw, and that is why I'm here making a review on you. Do I recommend spending money on the crates? This is what I will say, like I said, in every gambling event in-game. Set a limit. If you want to take part in it, by all means, go ahead and do it. Pay your dues, or, you know, help development of the game. If not, whatever, it's not a big deal. You're not missing out on anything. It's just a couple new ships. More often than not, you could play the Brindisi and get a similar play style. That's just as fun. But if you want to take part in this event, I would say, you know, put aside 9,000 doubloons or 5,000 doubloons or whatever you want to do. Get out your credit card, spend 10 bucks, whatever you want to do, and then move on. Don't spend too much time. Don't spend too much money. It's stupid. It's a trap. But enough about gambling. I don't want to talk about it night and day. You already know where I stand with that. Let's move on to the actual review. Now, the actual port analysis of this ship is going to be quicker because I will be showcasing 2 games of the Messina where I'll be talking more in depth about the ship, some things that I found that I really like, some things that I find that, you know, could use some love or I don't like, and some overall general tips that I have on how to play this ship, or if you're fighting against her, what you need to know in order to basically take advantage of her and sink her out on the battlefield. So, like we always do, we're going to look at the armor layout, and I want to sum this up relatively quickly to you guys. Just going to showcase the Citadel to understand that this thing has a Citadel that can be punished, and it has a 25mm nose with a 25mm ass. This icebreaker, 50mm, isn't really in a good spot, meaning that it doesn't really matter. Unless you're aiming there, you're really not going to take advantage, like, you're not going to get shatters. If you just aim at the nose, you're going to be able to overmatch that thing completely with 380mm guns or higher. But basically what you need to know with the Messina hull is it is a Brindisi hull, basically copy-paste, maybe some subtle differences here and there, but the armor scheme still remains the same. So if you know where to shoot on the Brindisi, hell, you know where to shoot on this thing. Self-explanatory, pretty easy, moving on. Survivability is 45,800. Actually, let me just double check that. I think I have the signal flags on. I do. Double neck. Okay. 43,600 with a torpedo protection of 19%. You know, if we compare that to Gonzaga, as you know, the Gonzaga is an up-tiered hull of the Abruzzi, the tier 7 ship. Just know that that ship has way less survivability than that of the Messina, because the Messina can actually get punished via its Citadel, where the Gonzaga sometimes can get away with bloody murder. That's kind of my general rule of thumb. But overall, the Messina is going to be able to get punished a little bit more frequently. Even though Wargaming's intention was, hey, the Gonzaga, that's a tier 7 hull, that thing's a super light cruiser. We all know how that works in this game. Looking at you, Smolensk, looking at you, a couple other ships that, you know, sometimes get away with these massive, large caliber armor-piercing shells coming in and nothing but overpens. It happens, guys. It does happen. So that's why I'm going to say that the Messina here is going to get punished more reliably than the Gonzaga. Though theoretically speaking, based upon armor values, you would think that the Gonzaga would get punished a little bit more. Okay. Moving into the artillery, and I'm going to go ahead and showcase the firing angles here about the ship. Not terrible, not the best, but I make them work. I think they're pretty comfortable to use compared to like the Gonzagas, for example, which that 3rd and 4th turret are kind of a hassle to get, you know, make use of. This ship should be a little bit more comfortable, but you only have 3 turrets of 3 gun barrels per turret, so you have a total of 9 guns, whereas the Gonzaga, I believe, has 16. Though your guns are larger at the 152mm variants. You are reloading in 7.9 seconds, just shy of the 8-second mark, so basically 8 seconds, because you're really not going to be able to tell a whole difference. That's because of the upgrades I have slotted in that 6th slot, which is main artillery upgrade mod 17.3. 180-degree turn time is 17.2. Again, not having to take expert marksman on this ship, or grease the gears, excuse me, that's what it's called nowadays. You really don't need to take that skill, in my opinion. I think it turns and traverses just fine. You should be able to get away with it and use that skill point somewhere else on your build. Dispersion is very nice, very comfortable. No problems, no complaints with the dispersion values here. Your maximum range is 16.8 for a light cruiser. So what does that tell you? This ship is not an island humping start go kind of ship that uses islands as cover, though you theoretically should be doing that from time to time again, because that's essentially free damage. As long as someone's spotting and you're not spotted in return, that is basically free damage you're trading without having to receive any damage. It is what I highly recommend you do and take advantage of. That's why we fight for specific key areas on the map, so we can take advantage of that, especially in a cruiser. It is essential that it's going to translate to a more survivable ship, and you want to stay alive for longer because you can't shoot or deal any damage to the enemy if you're dead, right? Duh. Okay, looking more at the guns, with the build I have, I actually take heavy sap shells on this ship, which is going to be foregoing my concealment values. Now, I want to stress that just because I have the commander still locked on this ship right now. I will take him off to show you what improvements you get here in just a bit, but that is why my maximum damage is 3,960. If I take him off, you can see that damage drops to 3,600. My reasoning for this is because you only have SAP, you have to fully invest and build into that, because that is your main damage dealer. So no matter if the target is saturated, if it's full HP or whatever, you want to make sure you have higher alpha strike potential so you're doing more damage. Because I can't switch to armor piercing and take full advantage of broadsides because I only have one shell type, which is the way the characteristics of the shell works. So therefore, increasing the alpha strike of my ship is a must on this vessel. Kind of similar concept to be like the Druid. Okay, the Druid only has that short fused armor piercing, so why would you not take the heavy AP skill, or whatever the corresponding skill is for destroyers, and buff your AP damage? It's your only damage dealer. You can't switch to HE, right? So if you're only getting overpens, your overpens are going to be a little bit more because you take the heavy AP shell. That's kind of my thought process when I'm looking at the Messina, okay? Now, looking at the armor penetration capabilities of 42 millimeters, that is a great threshold. You should be able to penetrate the vast majority of ships that you're going to be fighting. Just there are a couple of ships that I would look out for, sometimes higher tier German battleships, those Soviet BBs, anything with really improved armor on the deck and the belt. You don't want to be shooting belt anyways, but upper belt, right, for more example, like you have to know where you're shooting. So if you're fighting those specific ships, you're going to have to aim a little bit higher and just chunk superstructure, which in the second battle I will be showing, I actually find myself engaging a Kremlin, and you're going to be seeing that I'm specifically aiming for the superstructure because I will not be able to do any meaningful amounts of damage when he's angled to me on anywhere on his hull, including his ass and his nose. So that's why you have to have really good ship knowledge in this game to make this ship work. Secondary mounts, you got them. They're the 90 millimeter variant. They've only penetrate 15 millimeters of armor, and they shoot high explosives, so you're only going to be reliably doing damage to destroyers, if that, and not really, or superstructure of 13 millimeters. So yeah, completely nullify that because, my bad, I got a little bit of a brain fart. Destroyers are up to high around 19 millimeters of effective armor, so you can't even penetrate DD. So the only meaningful, reliable damage you're going to be doing to ships at this tier are either superstructure hits, if your secondaries can even hit that, because we all know how accurate or inaccurate our secondary batteries are, and then damage from fires. And you only have a 5% fire chance, and you're really not sending a whole lot of fires. Big problem with Italian ships in this game, if they don't shoot sap secondaries, is they're high explosive because they're coated 90 millimeter turrets that only pen 15 millimeters of effective armor. Initial velocity on your main battery, though, going back to that, is 940 meters a second. No problem landing these shells on target. Very comfortable to utilize. You should be landing the vast majority of your shells on target. Now, another big big pro on this ship is the torpedo tubes. You get 2x4 533 millimeter torpedoes. They reload in just over 2 minutes, so it's 140 seconds. Maximum range, though, is only 8 kilometers. This is a bit of a struggle bus. It kind of sucks, especially with the build that I'm running. But remember, you have the fuel exhaust smoke, you have the 6-kilometer hydros, you have tools at your disposal that can theoretically allow you to be a little bit more survivable when you're trying to make use of these torps. Now, I'm not saying you go out of your way to utilize these torpedoes, but these are going to sway combat heavily in your favor and will catch a lot of ships off guard. You essentially have almost within the realms Shimakaze levels of torpedo damage on your ship at 20,433. That is insane. Plus, coupled with the 72 knots that these torpedoes will be flying through the water with a detectability range of 1.7 km, really translates to a very effective torpedo platform. Okay, you're going to have about an 8.8 second reaction time on these torps base without the hydro, but because they do so much damage, that's why Wargaming is kind of compensating with that. Okay, your flood chance is astronomical, tying that of the Gonzaga at 349%, and your torpedo DPM is considerably more higher than the Gonzaga as well. Remember, the Gonzaga only has the 10-kilometer torpedoes, still matching the damage at 20,433, but just because they travel additional 2 kilometers has to do with the playstyle of this ship. This ship is a little bit more full throttle, in my opinion, compared to the Gonzaga. Okay. Something worth actually noting is the anti-aircraft suite on this ship, and I really want to talk about her because I want to stress this to you as the viewer. Okay, this ship does have dual-purpose AA, meaning its 152 millimeter guns actually act as its long-range anti-aircraft aura. Okay, its AA is actually quite potent with a continuous damage of 424 damage, right, per second, I believe it is. And then here are the values also on the bottom right of your screen about all the continuous AA damage that you will see, or anti-aircraft values on this ship. Maximum range is 5.2, so that is big German influence on this ship, which is nice. Your flak strength is incredibly strong, and your flak count is considerably high. You have 10 flak with the build that I'm running on this ship. Okay, that is awesome. And that is exactly why I actually don't take or recommend any AA skills on this ship. Now, if you want to sacrifice damage and survivability on the ship in order to spec into a higher anti-aircraft suite, by all means, you can do that. You're only going to make your AA even stronger, okay? In my opinion, you're taking away from the offensive capability and the survivability of your vessel if you spec into the AA. And I think Wargaming made your AA strong so that you would take the certain skills that I'm recommending compared to making your AA even stronger. But then again, it comes down to you as a commander, right? If you're running into a shit ton of CVs, you're sick and tired of aircraft carriers running your game, or whatever it is, I don't really particularly care. But as you as the commander, if you feel like your AA battery needs to be stronger, you take the corresponding skills, your AA will be even stronger. I'm just saying base as it comes, your AA is already going to be sufficient enough to, in my opinion, catch carrier players napping or deter them the next strike. Now, as you know, AA in this game isn't really designed to shoot down planes and protect you from getting struck at all. It is basically as a deterrence for continuous strikes. That's the way it's set up. So take it with a pinch of salt. Whatever you feel is necessary or whatever you think is the right maneuver or play, you do that the way you feel you deem fit. Okay, touching base on the last two things, the maneuverability, 37 knots. This thing is fucking flying through the water with a turning circle radius at 680 meters, and then rudder shift time with the skills that I've taken, whatever, at 10.5. I actually don't spec anything into double rudder shift. I think it's already handles pretty damn well. I actually take it in the engine prop or the engine propulsion to start and stop a little bit quicker, 50% less time to reach that full engine power. And then obviously with the concealment build on this ship, I do take the concealment module in the 5th slot, coupled with the commander skill because I'm taking heavy sap skill. So that's going to get me out to 13.1, which is very usable for this ship. Okay, very, very usable. I don't recommend not taking heavy sap. I've already explained why, so I'm not going to talk about it again. If you missed that portion or you skipped it, well, that's your own fault because I'm really going in depth on these ships and telling you why I'm taking specific skills. Don't skip it. Don't be that guy. All right, guys, and that's the Messina in a nutshell here in the port analysis. I want to waste no more time. I want to go right into the battles here, so let's go on and check them out. Okay, and here we are in the first battle with the our Tier 9 Italian light cruiser. I will flash up the upgrades and the commander skills that I have taken on this ship. Highly recommend this commander build, by the way. I only have a 16-point commander. That just shows you how much I've played this ship. I started off with a 10-pointer. That's what it gave me, and I've already worked my way up to a 16. So you can tell I've been spamming this ship left, right, and center, and I've been playing actually not only good for my own self, but also in regards of like base XP earned at the end of game. Actually, speaking of which, this game in particular, I was absolutely flabbergasted with the base XP that I have earned via. I didn't even get an E rank. I thought that was crazy, but also it's a good sign because it shows two things. One, it shows just how well players are doing in this, and two, it shows that it's pretty darn exclusive. And I don't think a lot of players have it yet, but not a lot of players having it, being really good, that usually is pretty cancerous. But I just think it's a good sign because not a whole lot of players are spending money in the Lunar New Year crates to obtain the ship, so that's why I kind of think it's good right now. But again, like I mentioned previously in this game, if you do manage to get this ship, guys, this ship gets my full and utter recommendation. This is like 2 thumbs way high in the sky about this ship. This ship really embodies everything that I really like in this game, and I think from a play style, from a fun factor, from being competitive, being able to get punished, being balanced pretty damn good, I really do like this ship. Now, also, I apologize. When I recorded this footage, I actually do have the in-game audio on, and my mic was hot. So you're gonna hear me say some pretty outlandish shit in during the gameplay. Just know it comes from a good place, and it's probably a competitive element to it. So I will try not to talk as much, so maybe you guys can hear that, and speak more so on the second game, but. The couple things I do want to talk about with this ship, as you can see, you do have quite the extensive consumable loadout on this vessel for a light cruiser, and I think that's why I really like light cruisers, or tend to gravitate more towards light cruisers. They usually, in my opinion, have a little bit more utility. They're a little bit more fun to play,
Oh my
pretty
god, dude, what are
pretty
you
damn
doing?
engaging, um, and I really do like it, right? I really do like the kind of light cruiser play style, and I think it makes for a really fun package. Now no, don't get me wrong, there are some light cruisers in this game that really all they do is they do one thing, which is damage farming. They really don't bring much in like regards of team utility, like radar, hydra, or anything like that. Mainly looking at like the Ultrek, for an example, that line is a prime example of just a damage farmer. All they do and how they help the team is by setting fires and by doing damage to enemy ships. That's really like the main thing. But I feel like the Messianic can do a little bit more than that. One, it has decent AA, only 5.2 kilometer range, which is on the lower side. It's not like team oriented or team based at 6.9 kilometers that most light cruisers get that have dual purpose AA mounts, right, for their main purpose guns or their main artillery. Right, so that's one thing. It has a 6 kilometer hydroacoustic surge, which is like the German hydro, which is very nice. That's why you see I'm going forward and playing more so aggressive in the ship. I never want to stop moving is the one thing I find with the Messiana, and I really like
Jesus.
to keep I really like to keep moving. Yes, I have the engine. You start and stop a little bit sooner, which is huge. But I usually use that in regards of throttle juking and throwing off enemy salvos is like the main reason on how why I took that skill compared to like rudder shift. Rudder shift, in my opinion, is more for ships that really just feel a little bit sluggish in the water and really need help making their turrets come to bear. That's when you want to utilize that. As you can see, the 6 kilometer hydro, that coupled with the sub-surveillance radar from our ally, really helps spot this enemy thrasher. Plus, the semi-armor piercing is no joke. Probably the single biggest threat to enemy submarines is sap, especially large caliber sap. So something like battleship level sap is going to be huge in regards to doing damage to that. But one thing I found with the Messiana is a lot of people don't know that this ship has a 6 kilometer hydro. Okay, so that's just kind of like an FYI, trying to be, the more you know, more informative to the community is this ship does come with a 6 kilometer hydro. So really treat this ship like a you know, like a Hindenburg or something like that. You don't want to be caught with your pants down, especially with the fuel exhaust smoke, because you're traveling at 37 knots base. This thing can close the distance on you incredibly well. Like you're going to see with me on this Jaeger. This Jaeger can physically not outrun me very well, because first of all, he's near the border, so that's not helping with any favors. But also, like, look at the blind fires. Some people just don't know how fast this ship is. So this ship can close the distance considerably fast. Also, you have to understand your detection, like smoke firing penalty, is 7.7 kilometers. So you have to play around that and know when you can and when you cannot shoot, because the last thing you want is to smoke up, shoot your guns, and then you're lit. Okay, that is one major thing you don't want. But you only have a 1.7 kilometer difference between when you fire your guns in smoke to when your hydroacoustic search can detect whoever's detecting. That's still quite a bit, but it's better than like the standard 5 kilometers that give you about a 2.7 kilometer like differential between the two. Okay, so that is one major thing I want to stress to you guys. If we touch on the consumables, the fuel exhaust smoke is actually quite nice. You only get 2 charges space, though compared to the Gonzaga, you get 3. So I guess it allows the Gonzaga to be a little bit more flexible, while the Messina has to, it's mandatory, you're going to have to take that superintendent skill. Though on both ships, I would highly recommend you take it, because having one more charge of a consumable is just a huge pro. That includes your heal, your fuel exhaust smoke, your hydro, and of course your patrol fighter, which actually now is again a good self-deterrence for aircraft carriers. That coupled with your AA suite, again, it's not going to basically prevent CVs from dropping, but in the back of their mind, they will now know that I'm going to suffer some plane losses if I go and strike this Messina with this patrol fighter active. Okay, but this fuel exhaust smoke is quite nice. Action time is 40 seconds. And it has a cooldown time of 150 seconds. Okay, if we look at the Gonzaga actually has an action time of 40 seconds with a cooldown time of 160. So it has 10-second longer smoke like recharge time compared to the Messina. I guess that's nice, but that's also why I recommend taking the commander skill. That's going to lower your smoke consumable duration, or your like recharge rate, by 7.5 seconds. I believe it's a tier 1 skill. And then in the tier 2, you're going to go ahead and take the skill that extends all your consumables duration by 10%. Now, in my initial like upgrades, like overview, you saw that I recommend you take the hydroacoustics modification there in the second slot. It's going to add to a just more duration or a longer duration of your hydro. That's a no-brainer in my opinion. But again, if you don't want to spend coal, you don't have to take that upgrade. I think you're fine with just taking engine propulsion or engine protection modification 1 in that slot to help you with your steering gears repair time and, you know, getting your engine knocked out and getting it up faster. I think that is a great skill to have. But again, here's a good example of catching a Jaeger off guard. He, you know, did it once, you know, shame on you. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, kind of thing. And he falls for it again. Again, he doesn't understand how fast I can close the distance. That's my initial thought. I'm going to pipe my hydro, use my smoke, and then sure as shit, there he is. He's caught off guard again by my 6-kilometer hydroacoustic search. And at this range, especially with him flat broadside to me, there should be no room for escape. Though he manages to. As you can see, my aiming wasn't the best on the Jaeger here, and you're going to hear my frustration in the audio here in a couple seconds. But yes, I aimed a little bit too high on the Pan-Asian or Pan-European jet ski. That's for sure.
Oh, I fucked up.
The Pan-European jet ski is just a nickname I've given this ship because it sits so fucking low in the water, and it's a World War I era ship. It's just incredibly frustrating to hit this damn thing, and if you manage to, your shell basically any lower would land in the water, because that's how low this thing sits to the water. You'd think like any considerably large wave that happens to, you know, go underneath the vessel would make this thing capsize, but, you know, whatever, doesn't matter. We end up taking out that bad boy. I'm going to fast forward here to the Shimakaze. That would be the last ship alive on the enemy team. And we actually managed to blind fire kill him at the end because our shell velocity is so good, and we know the speed of the Shimakaze considerably or roughly with his speed boost active. So we're going to blind fire. You know, you miss 100% of the shells or shots you don't take, and we're going to go ahead and land the killing blow on the Shimakaze there, which was nice.
What a shot.
Could have done better myself. So the end of the game here, post-battle analysis, I want to showcase this to you guys just to show you how exclusive this thing is right now and how well people are doing. I end up only getting a 1 rank. Yes, it was only a measly 104,000 damage.
That's a 1? That's a 1 rank.
But we end up getting such high levels of
Bro,
base
that is
XP,
criminal. I can't believe that.
it actually caught me off guard with how high my base XP was that I didn't pick up an E rank. Not that that matters. I just think it's a good gauge to showcase to you guys about how exclusive this ship is and how well players are doing in this particular ship. So now that we didn't record our live game audio and we just have a flat audio base, we're going to go ahead and showcase game number 2 for you guys here, which is a kind of a better gauge of what this ship can do more consistently per game. I think on average, 104,000 damage in the Messina is pretty damn good. I don't think there should be any problem with that particular damage number or damage total. But when you're starting to exceed 200,000 damage per game, I think it's a good indicator that this ship is strong. I definitely think if you see this ship, don't underestimate her. She is quite good, and she will manage to rack up damage considerably fast based upon just having semi-armor piercing. It is such a great ammunition choice just for doing raw chunk damage that I can't recommend it enough. But the only balancing feature here, in my opinion, is 2 things. Knowing how much pen your sap has, which is 42 millimeters, and knowing the target you're shooting at, what their armor scheme generally is. There are general rules you can follow upon, like cruiser values, about 25 millimeter nose, potentially some of them having 27. Upper belts usually around 30 millimeters. Decks anywhere between 25 to 40 millimeters. German, not German battleships, American BBs, French BBs, and Royal Navy BBs are usually around anywhere between 32 to 38 millimeters of like body, nose, ass, upper belt, and deck armor. So roughly they are susceptible to 42 millimeters of penetration. All superstructure is going to be susceptible to that. Just knowing certain values is going to help you not only play the game for any ship, but especially those that are firing semi-armor piercing. That is a big thing I see. And I've seen a lot of players, they don't understand how you really to use SAP. A lot of them shoot waterline and they just get nothing but shatters. It happens. So you have to know where to shoot your target as well. Understand, like, look where I'm shooting specific said ships, okay? I'm not aiming waterline on this guy. I'm aiming midway up the ship and above. That's going to translate to areas that I know I can go ahead and penetrate, which is going to translate to more damage for my ship, which is going to be able to take this guy out. Because he's being so nice and considerate, and I have BB support, right? He's showing flat broadside. There should be no problem. But if he starts to angle, it's going to throw a little bit of a kink in the chain because it's going to increase his armor threshold values, and that could potentially give more of a, question mark whether or not I'm going to go ahead and pen. So to be safe, I'm going to aim superstructure-ish, so I know I can pen that, and I'm going to go ahead and end up taking him down, even though it was basically the battleship who citadelled him once and did catastrophic amounts of damage to him. But, it's one of those things, like, in a 1v1 scenario, I don't know if the Messina can actually out-trade a lot of ships and take them down, especially when we're here with heals, other ships having armor piercing, other ships having HE. It's really difficult. And at first, when I first saw the ship, when it was announced, when I first, played this ship, I'm like, this ship is going to be broken. I think this ship is beyond broken. But then I realized, like, yes, you're going to be doing chunk damage and you're going to be doing a little bit more consistent on the damage department. But, like, in regards of 1v1 scenarios, I think this is where the ship is going to struggle. And especially on targets that have really good armor schemes, like battleships, like, the Kremlin here is a big example. This ship is really going to be rendered sort of useless, and that's where it's going to rely on its fuel exhaust smoke, heal, and its 8 kilometer 20,000 damaging torpedoes. That is when you're going to have to make that decision, because yes, I can kite this Kremlin, I can try to disengage, but now having 2 BBs, if I start my gamer turn to try to turn out here, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to both turn their turrets towards me, shoot me, hit my very large citadel, and send me back to port. And I think that's what the vast majority of players would do. Sometimes it's better to just play it more conservatively and safer rather than making this, full Hail Mary and like, oh, just rip the Band-Aid off. It's like, no, I think with my maneuverability and my consumable loadout and my battle knowledge of this ship and what I'm fighting, I think I could try to make this thing work. Now, I will be honest with you, when you get shot in this ship, you will take damage. Okay, as you're seeing here, you will take damage, and I think I've shown good examples of that, in the other battle, and you're going to see examples of that in this battle. This ship is not citadelable proof. It has above water citadel. It can get punished. So if you're fighting this thing, aim waterline, you can overmatch its nose, You're going to get those Citadel ribbons. Just basically treat this ship like you would shoot any other cruiser that with 25mm nose, 25mm ass that has a raised Citadel. You should get decent results, if not phenomenal results, when you're fighting this thing, okay? Now, moving on into the last thing I really want to touch base on this ship. I talked about the consumables, I talked about the AA, I talked about the SAP, I talked about the survivability, I talked about everything that had to correspond with this ship. I even mentioned how to obtain this ship, which is obviously a little bit frustrating to me. Hell, even ShipTool doesn't even recognize the ship as being released yet into the game because it's hidden behind fucking loot containers, which sucks. It does suck, and I do think we will see this ship eventually added into the game. It is a tier 9. How Wargaming will add this thing into the game, I don't know. I can only assume they're going to shove it in the premium store in about 6 months, maybe a little later, maybe a little earlier. I do know that Wargaming stated, and I think I watched this on another YouTuber's videos, that they did say that these ships will be released an alternative way down the road, like we've seen previously with ships being released. So stay tuned for that. So that's why these reviews are not more so for the select few that gamble and get this ship right now. It's for you in 6 months, potentially go back to this video, find this video, or have watched this video and it sticks with you all this information to know whether or not whatever resource this ship will be sold for. In my opinion, I think this will be a doubloon ship, sadly, just like we see a lot of expensive doubloon ships in the game in the premium store, whether or not you want to pull the trigger on her, okay? Yes, you can get lucky like I did and end up getting her out of a loot crate, which is incredibly lucky. Usually I don't have that luck. But because I was sitting on a bunch of doubloons, there's nothing that I really wanted to spend it on. I didn't spend it on the entire Pan-European battleship branch or anything like that with early access, because I think early access is really stupid, even more so stupid than loot boxes. I said, fuck it, I'm going to take a swig at this. And I spent 9,000 on 20, and I actually got this thing. So that is why I'm doing this review. I would not have done this review, just like as of right now, I'm not doing the Ying Ming review because I don't have the ship, nor do I intend to spend more money on the event. Okay, that is the only reason I am making this review for you guys. And I think it was a good thing that I ended up getting this ship, because now I can share with all of you my thoughts, being a cruiser player, mainly a cruiser player, a big cruiser main player, what I feel about this ship. And being an avid fan of the Italian cruiser line, I can attest to you, if you like the Venezia, if you like the Goretti, if you like Italian ships in general, this ship will feel very, very comfortable to play. Okay, I think the big discussion is whether or not this ship, is it better than the Gonzaga? Okay, my opinion, I think this ship is going to be a little bit easier to play than the Gonzaga and maybe a little bit more fun. I think the Gonzaga has a little floatier shell arcs. The turret firing angles can be a little bit funky to utilize. And you are a tier 7 hull, which can make you decently susceptible to, well, not decently, pretty damn susceptible to lower caliber shells, like from DDs and from other cruisers. So that's why, in my opinion, I'm going to feel like the Messina is the superior choice. That being said, though, if I rate this ship, like the Messina, a 9 out of 10, I gotta rate the Gonzaga like a 7 or 8 out of 10. Like, it's still a very, very fun ship for me to play, and it's going to translate well to this ship. Now, another thing about the Messina is it is a tier 9 premium, which means you're going to get improved premium credit income. Post-battle repair costs are going to be greatly reduced, and it's a premium ship, so you can bounce commanders to and from. So if you have your Gonzaga commander will translate incredibly well to the Messina. And even if you're looking at DD levels of commanders that you want to retrain or get them up quicker too, I think Italian DD commanders translate better to this ship, more so than cruiser commanders like from the Venezia line, because the way that I build those ships are going to be slightly different compared to how I build my Italian light cruisers. That's the big difference here, okay? And I wanted to make sure I stress that to you, because not all of us sit on 20,000 doubloons each and every patch. Not every of us throw our credit card at the monitor or at the game. A lot of us are free to play players, so I have to understand, and I have to stress this to you guys, that I'm trying my best to make sure that I appeal to everyone, because I know everyone thinks different when it comes to buying ships and obtaining certain ships. So I want to make sure that I appeal to everybody. So make sure I get that off my chest. So yeah, that's basically it. So now I'm going to go into my final thoughts about this ship. Okay, one, this ship is a boatload of fun. I cannot tell you and stress to you how much fun I have had playing the ship in the game currently, and it's only been 24 hours, and I have accumulated couple of games that you're seeing here that are fun and good to showcase, because I think they showcase a lot of the pros and highlight a lot of the cons, which is always important, okay? Two, when you're fighting against this thing, the big thing I want to stress to you is you have to basically respect the guns and the sap, but understand in order to get his third turret to bear on the Messina, that is exposing the Citadel plating, and you should be able to punish them in return. They are coated in 25 millimeters of armor. This is a Brindisi armor scheme or armor hull. You should be able to punish this thing with the battleship. The only caveat or trick is landing your shells, because this thing is insanely fast. When you're shooting at this thing at greater distance, this is going to be kind of a hassle to hit. You know, Italian ships are incredibly maneuverable. But this one's incredibly fast at 37 knots, which most of them are. So make sure you lead accordingly. I'm talking like outside of 16, 17 kilometers, you want to be leading this thing by 15 clicks. I mean, it's just how it's going to translate, and at least what I have found. Okay, all Messianas that I have fought against have always kept this thing around 13 to 16 kilometers of range, which I think is good for a damage farming role. But then again, when you see your spot based upon certain ships that are camping out, no raiders, no hydras, or they just used it, then you can take full advantage of your hydroacoustic fuel exhaust smoke mechanic here with these insanely strong torpedoes, and you can go for a little bit of a YOLO rush. Now, I don't recommend you doing that, like I've stressed before, just because you have these hard-hitting, insanely hard-hitting Italian torpedoes, the fuel exhaust smoke, and the hydro, doesn't mean you have to play kind of like a YOLO Emilio Cruiser style of gameplay. Just because you have them doesn't mean you need to utilize them. They are a trick or an ace up your sleeve that you have to either push and get ships out that are dug in, or get you out of sticky situations. It's a big deterrent. So don't think this is just another torpedo cruiser, because it's not. That's not the way the ship wants to play. And I feel like if any YouTuber is trying to tell you that, they're stressing to you the wrong information that translates, or that basically doesn't really translate well to how this ship plays or how it wants to play. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more content. I'll do my best to go ahead and trickle that out to you. Again, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one, and peace out.